Hey, Dr. Jon Finn here. Welcome to the Habit Mechanic podcast. Right now, you can get my new best-selling book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, at tougherminds.co.uk. The digital book, audiobook, and physical book are all available at a special price that you won't find anywhere else. Hello, Habit Mechanics. It's Dr. Jon Finn here. I hope you're having a fantastic week so far. Today, I want to talk about brain states. That is the thing that if we understand and if we get right, then it's the key to unlocking everything we are trying to achieve in our life. So our brain runs us. Our brain is operating in brain states. Our the way it's doing that is driven by automatic, semi-automatic behaviours, and we can learn how to mold and sculpt those behaviours into habits by becoming a habit mechanic. And then if we really want to master that, want to become a master habit mechanic, then we can learn how to become a certified habit mechanic coach. Because by doing that, you're going to learn far more about helping yourself to be at your best than you ever will just by working on yourself. So I want to go back to the origins of brain states. It's coming up to about 1 year since I conceived the idea of writing Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution. I think I did that. It was the 17th of December last year. And I knew that I wanted to make brain states the centerpiece of the book, because that is what I've learned over 25 years, is that if you can help someone to understand their brain states, it is the absolute key to being at their best and achieving whatever they want to achieve, whether it's reduced overwhelm, increased focus, achieving any goal they want to achieve, whether that's getting great GCSE or SATs results, or getting your degree, or getting your next job promotion, or creating a fantastic business, or being a great parent, or, whatever you want to be. Brain states are the foundations. And I knew that what I was seeing with the emerging neural network AI technologies was that they were useless unless you could manage your brain states. And actually, they were those technologies, having used them quite a lot at that point, I could see they were actually just mimicking certain brain states that we already have. And therefore, by understanding our own brain states more, we'd actually better understand AI. So that's why, if you've read Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, you will have a really good understanding of the three brain states. And I'm going to come on to talk about those. And if you've read The Habit Mechanic before that, then you'd also understand the brain states. But I want to go back to, I suppose, the origin story of brain states, certainly as I remember it. I think there were lots of different pieces to the jigsaw puzzle of me coming up with not the science of brain states that exists, and that's stuff that I've literally been studying for over 25 years, but trying to explain them in a digestible way so people can really understand them. And one striking moment I remember, and I think this was it was maybe 2015, and what had happened was we had started to get quite a lot of coverage in the press for our work, and the Daily Telegraph had written, it maybe even been the Sunday Telegraph, had written a big article about our work. Like, I think it was literally on the second page of their newspaper. That's quite a big thing. We didn't pay anyone for that. They saw what we were doing and got really interested in it. And that generated quite a lot of inquiries from people that wanted us to go work with them. And one of the organisations that inquired were Robert Gordon's University, who are based up in Aberdeen. And they said, we run a residential program every year for our PhD students, and we think that your Tougher Minds program would be really helpful for them. Is it something that you could come up to the residential and you could run the program, over a few days to be the core thing that we focus on? So we said, yeah, sure. And myself and Professor Jim McKenna, my good friend and a big mentor of mine, we went up together on the train, actually, to a beautiful place on um, the east coast of Scotland, not quite as far up as Aberdeen, but probably about halfway between Aberdeen and Edinburgh, and it's called Montrose. Beautiful place. You can get the train there if you've never been. And in Montrose, or just outside, there is what is now it's an old stately home. It's called the Burn, and it's now an educational residential retreat, or it can be hired out for private things like weddings. And it's a very sad story that the owners of that home, um, their son, I think their eldest son, fought in World War One, and he died, and I think that was quite a um, well, understandably a very traumatic thing for them, and they ended up giving the Burn over to be used to help to develop young people. And it's a beautiful place. It's got the salmon fishing street, the salmon in the river, and all this kind of stuff. Fantastic. But how does this link back to brain states? Well, Professor Jim McKenna, was it was basically 4 sessions we had to run over one and a half over over um 2 half days and a full day. So we got there. We travelled up on the well, say Wednesday morning. We did our first session on the Wednesday afternoon, and then we had all day Wednesday. All day Thursday, and then a bit of Friday morning. So Jim took the first session. So I was got that really nice a situation where you're getting paid to sit and watch someone as brilliant as Jim McKenna talk to the PhD students, really about getting their brains working really well, frankly, although doing it through the guise of exercise, and behavior change science for doing more bouts of moving around, not just going to the gym, but walking, etc., and all these different things you can do to actually get your brain working really well. And that's what Jim is a world leading expert at. It's behavior change, behavioral science for exercise. One of the most difficult types of behaviors that we struggle to get people to adopt. And as I was sitting there, one thing that so I was pretty familiar with Jim's work and his presentations, but one new thing I'd heard him say that I'd not heard him talk about before was this idea of the kind of tasks that you have to do every day. And he talked about you have these tasks where it's like you've got to shoot the elephant, and you have other tasks that are more like shooting a rabbit. So quite provocative language for some people, the idea of shooting an elephant or even rabbits. I get that, but that's very deliberate to make them get your attention. But I thought that was very interesting, and the fact that you would need different brain states to do those things. So I distinctly remember that. And then that blends into another story that connects into brain states. The foundation of brain states are activation levels, which is basically the neurotransmitters that are running your brain. So your brain activity is generated partly by electric impulses and partly by chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. That's why we said your brain literally is like a battery because it's running on electricity and chemicals, just like traditional batteries do. So you got lots of neurotransmitters running around up there, things like glutamate and GABA and serotonin and adrenaline and dopamine, and they've all got different roles and functions, and they help you to get into different activation levels So some of those neurotransmitters make it easier for you to get to sleep. Some of them make it easier for you to focus, and so on and so forth. And I was so compelled by the power of teaching activation that I was trying to teach it to 11-year-old kids at the Monmouth schools, where I was working as the haberdasher's form and psychology fellow. So I was stood in a gymnasium with a whiteboard with about 20 or 30 10 and 11-year-olds, or maybe 11 and 12-year-olds sat around me, and I was drawing out on the whiteboard this line of activation. So it's like a continuum from 0 to 100. And this was built on a lot of work I'd been doing in golf psychology before I took up that position, and I created the pre-shot system, etc. And that's what we were actually teaching these young guys, and we were building it into their PE curriculum. But anyway, so when I'm delivering my work at this point, and this was maybe 3 or 4 years after I was doing that work at Monmouth, activation was right at the front of my mind. And I think what Jim was talking about was this idea of these different tasks that you're doing every day. That lit the spark for me about trying to instead of having activation just as a continuum from 1 to 100, or as well as having it as a continuum from 1 to 100. So, or from actually 0 to 100, because it's 0 on the activation dial, you're dead. I thought actually an interesting layer to put on top of that would be brain states. And I didn't magically come up with the 3 brain states, but that was definitely the spark, and thinking about how actually you need a different set of neurotransmitters, a different activation level, if you're going to shoot the elephant really effectively. And then you need a different activation level to shoot the rabbits. And in fact, the language that emerged from that was building an ice sculpture and freezing ice cubes. So building an ice sculpture was, I suppose, our alternative or refined way of thinking about shooting the elephant. I think building ice sculpture is a bit more constructive, but at a high level, it's getting to the same point. But yeah, it definitely is more refined. I think Jim would agree with that as well. To building the ice sculpture, but I think I probably had more time to think about it. And then shooting the rabbits is us freezing the ice cubes. So that story was really pivotal in the jigsaw puzzle of coming up with the brain states, or the way of explaining brain states that I think that so strongly resonates with people. And at that time, Tougher Minds was getting lots of traction, and we were doing lots of live training. And the beauty of that is just get a chance to test out all these ideas, and you can say it one way in one session and a different way in the next session. And I think very quickly got to the 3 brain states and saw how well they landed. And I know that when people just understand their 3 brain states, that self-knowledge, that brain state intelligence is significant in helping them to be healthier, happier, and at their best more often. And that's why, we make it the center of what we talk about, because our brain does drive us, but just saying your brain feels a bit vague and a bit intangible. When you start to break it into brain states and you can actually connect it to the different tasks that you're doing every day, everything from sleeping through to your highest focus states, then it starts to become more meaningful for people. And that's what Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution is all about. But of course, just understanding your brain states isn't enough. That's why you need brain state habits. And that's why we created the 6 brain state habits, the 6 habits of high performing AI professionals, is showing you how to build those 6 core brain state management habits. And we created a course for that, which is the 6 habits course. You can get that from our website. So brain states, again, are the key, but we know that just knowing about something isn't enough for it to necessarily positively impact our behavior. So therefore you need to be working and building these brain state habits, and by doing that you're becoming a habit mechanic. So by understanding the fact that your brain is running in states and it's running on habits, and you're proactively trying to refine those brain states by building different habits, you're a habit mechanic. But what we've learned is, and the learning always starts with me. I've learned far more, significantly more, by helping other people to be at their best about myself than I have from just working on myself. And there is that old saying of you don't really know it until you can teach it. And that's so true. Having been an academic lecturer, it's definitely, if you don't really know it, you're not going to be a very good teacher. But I think it goes much further than that. When you're working on behavior change, you just learn so much more about yourself by helping others than just working on yourself. And that's why the certified habit mechanic coach training, it's not just about setting up a coaching business or being a formal coach. It's actually first and foremost about working on yourself. So by helping other people with their brain state, so just even thinking about it through that lens, you then can sort of get this third person perspective on yourself, on your own behavior, that is much more difficult, and I would say impossible to do when you're just thinking about it through your own eyes. So that's the journey. That's the journey that we're all on together. And I'm hearing lots and lots of really positive feedback at the moment about people just getting those brain state breakthroughs and just getting that 1 or 2 habits established that is making such an important positive impact on their own life and on other people's lives. And I think this time of year is so crucial in the rest of the year. So I think if we get this time of year right, so from going into the Christmas period now, into the new year, then we can really set ourselves up well for 2026, and we can have the best 2026 that we've ever had, however we want to measure that, whether it's the happiest year that we've had, or whether the healthiest we've had, or with the highest performing, or the family's at its best, whatever it is. If you get those brain states sorted out, then things are going to get much easier for you. So I'd really encourage you to be thinking about your brain states and where they're at and where you'd like them to be. And don't let the brain state habits get so bad that by the time you get to January the 1st, you're going to need 3-4 weeks to kind of undo all the things that you've done over the festive period. So, having time off from work, which most people do, gives you a chance to get high quality recharge, for example. And only by understanding what high quality recharge looks like can you do it really well. It isn't binge eating and binge drinking and staying up too late and just doing what you feel like doing. High quality recharge takes discipline. It takes willpower. It's ultimately a series of habits that you can build around that. So that's the origin story of brain states, and it's the first time I've ever told that story in the public domain. So I hope you found that interesting. I found it good to revisit. 10 years ago. It's amazing the journey that the habit mechanic approach has come on in that time, and we are so passionate about going even further and making it easier for people to be brain state intelligent. So if today what I said resonated with you, then tell someone else about their brain states. Introduce them to Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution. If you want to go further, do some more in-depth training. If you don't just want to do a course, we can offer coaching as well. If you want to go deep and get habit mechanic mastery, train to become a certified habit mechanic coach. So we want to help you ultimately to be at your best, so that you can help others to be at their best. Because it's true, and I always say it at the end of podcasts, but it's so true. You're only ever one brain state habit away from being whatever you want to be. If you can just often unlock one key brain state management habit, then it makes a striking difference in your life. And there are only 6 habits to unlock, right? So it's a good problem to be working on, because there are only so many solutions, and you'll find the one that works for you faster than you think. So thanks for listening, and I'll say it again, you're only ever one brain state habit away. Thanks for listening to the Habit Mechanic podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe and tell someone else about one of the ideas or insights that you found most interesting.